Welcome to another episode of the Wandering Watercolor. Let's paint. So this is the second page in the forest scenery watercolor coloring book that I make. Last time for the first page I used this set, the Crayola Education watercolor set. It's a very good set and I like it because it gives off vibrant colors and it's very affordable and you can find it pretty much anywhere. Recently I've been experimenting with this set, which is the Prang mini watercolor set, 15 colors. I'm actually surprised of how good the colors are that come out of it. So I'm using it just to show people that you can use different paints with these books. And with this one, this page I'm going to paint it with this set, and you still get really vibrant colors. I'll leave a link for both of these in the description, or you could just get them anywhere really. They're very common. As always, you want to have a brush, a place to mix your paint. This is just a soap dish. It's a porcelain soap dish. They're excellent for mixing colors. A little white cotton rag to dry off your brush as you're painting. But paper towel, whatever, anything works. And I have, on the side, I have 2 jars of water that I can use as I'm painting. Okay, so this is just a porcupine kind of walking through the forest. As you can tell, this is a more detailed book. There's a lot of detail and information in the forest if you ever go out hiking or sketching in the forest. A lot of information, really. That's why I did so many fine details and bold lines along with a little bit of shading here and there to kind of help reduce the amount of detail that one might have to do with a paintbrush. And so the first thing we'll do is I'm gonna wet my brush and I'm gonna go ahead and grab some of the we'll start off with the green, and we'll start off with the more yellow green. Now with this paint, even though it is very nice paint, I'm genuinely surprised of the quality for the price. But basically, the only drawback I would say is that it dries kind of quickly, but that can be a plus or a minus, really depends. So what I'll do here is, since this is a lighter green, I'm gonna go ahead and use it to establish. So I'm gonna block in some of the colors for the canopy. I'm gonna block in, like the leaves of the trees. Kind of look where the details are, and because of how much information is, because of how much line work there is, if you put it in the wrong place or go outside of the lines, don't worry about it at all. I'm gonna rinse my brush and then I'm gonna pull out some of that color upwards. There we go, like that. Definitely back here, I'm just gonna use that color. There we go. I'm being cognizant of where the sun rays are coming through. I want to overlap a little bit with the color, but then I also want to leave some of them. And I'm gonna put a little bit of green here, 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 like that. And then basically continue. For this color right here, if you're using this set, all you really need to do is just use yellow and green. If you add, if you just get some green and add some yellow to it, you'll get roughly the same color that I'm using right here to fill in. I'll go ahead and I'll grab some of the other green, the darker green. I'm gonna mix it in. With this paint set, you may have to rub it a little bit with a wet brush to get more of the pigment out, but not a lot. It's quite easy, honestly. And I'm going to grab a little bit of this color as well, just to mix it in. And I'm going to go ahead and lay in some of the color down here. And I'm just kind of blocking it in. Some of this is just kind of like dirt and rocks, so I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to put this here like that. And then there's also a little bit of foliage going up this way. I'm going to rinse my brush and then kind of draw out that color, fade it out. And remember, this first layer, it's more faint, but as we layer the shadows, textures, second, third layers, it'll become much more defined. So it's perfectly fine as it is right now. But the main thing is, the paper is good quality. It's high quality, professional grade watercolor paper. It's 140 pounds, cold pressed. And as long as you have good paper, most watercolor paints will look just fine. I think that's something that's really important for anybody that's undertaking watercolor to understand. So the next thing is, I'm gonna grab the brown here, mix them to the side, and then I'm gonna add water, kind of create like a good mixture of it. Since there's a lot of trees here, I want to make sure that I have a lot of it mixed up. And initially, I want it to be more transparent, therefore more water, less paint, so that when I do the second, third layer, it'll be easier to leave the highlights in. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and start. Basically, it's called a flat wash whenever you're just filling in an area with a color. That's basically what I'm doing here. I'm just establishing the value for this tree. These two trees kind of work almost as a frame, just to block in the focal point, which is the porcupine. I'm gonna add some more on the side, like that. And as it goes upwards, I'm going to... Oh, you can tell that I'm kind of leaving a white area here because that's where there's going to be some vines and green going upwards. On the left side, you can tell that I'm adding a little more paint. And then I'm going to rinse my brush, dry it off a little bit. There's still a little bit of color and moisture on it, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of pull out, fade out that color to the side here, like that. I'm gonna dry it off and then pull out some more of the color. And creating more highlights and shading kind of adds to the waviness and form of the tree. And then so next, I'm going to mix up a little more of the color. And work on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding. You can tell, same thing, I'm adding a lot more color to the outside to kind of help establish kind of like that framing. Like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. You'll notice multiple times I'll go outside of the lines. I'm more concerned with the color and the feel as opposed to making sure everything's perfect. And that's part of the nature of watercolor. It's very chaotic, and that's also what's fun about it. Add a little bit down here, a little bit in the branch, going like that. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush. Dry it a little bit. There's still a lot of moisture on it, and then I'm gonna do the same thing where I'm fading out that edge fading out that edge. Like that. There we go. Okay. Now for this tree that's back here, because we want it to be more in the background, it's more towards the middle ground, I would say. Like this right here is the foreground, this is in the middle ground, and then you have the background. So for that, we don't want it to stand out as much as the trees in the foreground. What we're going to do is we're going to grab a little bit of the purple. I'm going to mix it in with the brown. We get a little more purple. And it'll maintain a similar color, but more desaturated, a little more faded. And then we're going to add more water so it's more transparent. So when we fill it in, it'll still look similar to these trees, but you can tell that there's distance to it because of the differing color. There we go. Like that. This one, I'm not as concerned about the details as I am in these ones. Since it's further away, you wouldn't be able to tell as much of the detail or the form. Although we will add more texture later on. And I'm just rinsing my brush. And then I'm going to grab more of the darker green. And go ahead and here I'm going to kind of sporadically make some marks. That's a lot more pigment, a lot more paint, and less water. And I'll show you why in a minute. So I'm just kind of making the marks a little bit here, a little bit there, like that, a little bit up here. And I can also do the same thing on this side, do a little bit here and there. It also kind of helps separate the porcupine's face from the tree. Kind of going up a little bit this way, like that. Not too much, but enough to give the idea of what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush completely and then dry it off. There's still moisture on the brush, and I'm gonna go in and just kind of pull out some of that color here and there, like right here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does give those soft transitions between saturated and desaturated, which kind of creates the texture. It shows you that, you know, plants in nature have a very interesting balance of organized chaos to them. And I think watercolor is an excellent tool to capture some of that. And that's kind of why I did it this way. So you can tell that there's dimension, form, texture to the vine that's crawling up the tree. And then next, I'm going to grab more of the same color, same green, dark green. I'm going to add some brown to it, make it a little more earthy so that I can darken what we have down here. But you'll notice that there's different flowers, different leaves. I'm going to kind of go around them for two reasons. Create some of those details, some of those variations in colors, also maybe a little bit up here, and then stop right around there as it goes up, like that. A little bit down here just to show, you'll notice that I'm making small marks that are basically making it look like grass, just like brush marks with the tip of the brush, just to show where the little blades of grass are poking out, which creates more dimension and quite frankly it looks more interesting. Like that, maybe a little bit here. Definitely these little plants sticking out, give them some color. And you can tell I'm not trying to be perfect about it, but just kind of giving the suggestion, especially when a person looks at it at a glance, they'll get the idea of what's going on. Fun fact, if you ever go to a museum or a gallery for an art show, the average amount of time that a person spends looking at a piece of art is roughly 4 to 6 seconds. So don't worry about like all the little details. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and grab some of that brown, and then just as it is, I'm not gonna add too much water to it. I'm just gonna add a little bit so I have enough to work with. I'm going to use this to lay down some stronger colors down here for the dirt, like that. Moving up and around in here, and I'm not covering the whole patch of dirt, you know, like where there's dirt down here in the path that the hedgehog is walking on, or I'm sorry, the porcupine. Not really sure what the difference is, but I'm gonna rinse my brush, and now I'm just gonna kind of fade some of that out. Fade that out. There we go. There we go. Maybe a little bit over here too. I'll rinse my brush. And next what I'll do is I'll grab a little bit of the teal or blue-green. I'm gonna mix it back here and grab some of the yellow-green, like those two together. I'm gonna rub it in just to make sure that I get enough of the pigment, and get some water like that, some of that. If you need to mix this color because you're using a different palette, it's rather simple. You just add blue and green, and you kind of shift those two until you get to a color that's something like this. And I'm gonna go ahead and start blocking in the distant shrubs in the background, and I'm gonna fill it in like that, and back here like that, underneath the tail here, like that. Okay, and back here between the spikes of the porcupine. There we go. Rinse my brush. I'm gonna grab some of the yellow-green and just slightly mix it in so I can give some of that mixture going upward in the background. Later on we will layer in another color to fade it out, but for the time being I'm gonna do it like this, because we do want to make sure that the background is separated from the actual green that's in the trees. But this is basically like a base layer. I'm gonna rinse my brush and maybe grab a little bit here like that. There we go. Okay, now we'll grab the we're actually gonna grab this, I'm gonna mix it in here, and we're going to get some of the brown and mix it in with the yellow-green. So if you're using a different palette, just mix green, yellow, and brown. And we can use this to start creating some shading and separating some of the colors in the trees. So for example, back here, kind of like more towards the bottom, and I'm moving my brush in kind of like a random directions, but just using the tip mostly, adding a little bit of a couple of quick dabs here and there just to show that it is, just to create that texture. Like from a distance, if you look at a tree, you'll see that most of the shadow is obviously in the bottom of the lump of leaves, and then sporadically you'll see some shading going upward like this, which kind of creates that effect of form and texture. Like that. Back here a little bit. Like that. There we go. And you can tell that gives a lot of dimension to the piece. It gives it form. At a glance, it'll tell the viewer's eye, like, okay, this is some kind of shrubbery or plant life. Going upwards, like that, like that, like that. Okay, this is looking pretty good. I'll rinse my brush. Now we can focus a little bit on the porcupine while everything else is drying. I'm going to go ahead and mix a little bit of blue, dark blue, I should say, with the brown. And I'm going to use this mixture. It's kind of like a gray brown. I'm going to use this mixture for the bottom, so all of the legs of the porcupine. I'm going to cover them in this mixture. Like that. Like that. And a little bit going upward like this. But what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to stop right around here. Maybe a little bit on the tail. I'm going to rinse my brush completely. I'm going to dry it off a little bit. And then I'm going to fade out that color upwards, like that. Kind of fade it in very softly. And rinse my brush, and now I'm going to get a lot more of the brown. And use that to make marks like this. Now obviously it'll kind of spread out because of the paper being wet right there, like that. And that's what I want. I want to show some of those marks. I want them to blend in, especially towards the where the different, it shows kind of like layering. And then I rinse my brush completely and then do the same thing. Just kind of pull some of that color upwards. And down here in the tail, like that. And so that looks pretty good. Rinse my brush. And next, I'm going to focus more on the trees. I'm going to grab more of the paint, less water. I still want a good amount mixed up just because of how much area I have to cover with it. But so what I'm going to start doing now is creating a lot more contrast. So I'm blocking in the colors back here like this. Maybe creating some marks that are thin and thick to show the bark. Cutting in, creating the contrast, and making the texture on the tree looking more three-dimensional. So you'll notice in some areas I'll press lightly at the top, I'll press in on the brush and then let go, and that creates variability in the brush mark, which makes it look more organic for the indents and the textures of the bark. that. There we go. So far, so good. I'm gonna go ahead and grab more of the brown and do the same thing on this tree. So the outer part, I'm definitely covering more because I want it to be in deeper shadow. It helps frame the image better. Like that. And then again, making those marks. And doing a little bit more over here. Like that. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Except I'll probably want to add more of the darker brown on this side just because the amount that I added on that side just looks too dark. And so to balance it out, I'm just going to do a little bit of this. Like that. Not too much, but enough to really create that emphasis. Okay. And now I'm going to mix this color that I have back here with some of the brown so that I can do a little more texture back here. Now you'll notice this one isn't as strong. It's not as concentrated. And that's what we want. You still want to show that there's texture there, but not as much because it's in the distance. And that's what gives it dimension, but it's not overwhelming. Like it's not as eye-catching as the trees in the front. And then this back here, we're just gonna fill it in like this. Maybe fill in some of the branches up here. Nothing too complex, just a couple of brush marks. Give that idea of what's there. Like that, maybe this right here. Some of that, like that. Okay, so far so good. I'm gonna rinse my brush, make sure it's rinsed really well, because the next color I'm going to get is the yellow. Now yellow is easy to, because it's such a light color, if you add another one to it, the other color will easily take over it. So I'm adding a lot of yellow, and what I'll do is I'm going to add like a more concentrated color up here, and then all the concentration of the yellow is going to be up towards this way, like right here where the sun's peeking through. And next I'm just gonna rinse my brush a little bit, add a lot more water to this mixture, and then start pulling it down and kind of maybe overlaying over some of the color, but not all, some of the things that I've already painted on, but not too much. You know, it's enough to get the point across, but it's not overpowering. And remember, it will dry lighter. So even if it seems like a lot right now, you know, it'll dry lighter, so it's okay. I'm kind of laying in so much. Definitely here. Okay, here, like that. Okay. You know what? I'll also put a little bit on the porcupine. We'll go ahead and we'll add that on the back. And because of the color that's already on the porcupine, it doesn't look like it's too much when you add the color, but it's enough to be seen. I'm gonna rinse my brush. And the next thing I'll do is I'll grab some of the dark blue and mix it in with the brown here, just to make kind of a gray, maybe a little more blue. And what I'm wanting is to make a gray where I'm going to cover these rocks like that. Rinse my brush, grab some of the green that I already have. I notice there's a little bit of a white gap right there. Rinse my brush. See, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how it looks so far, but we do want to add more variation and contrast, especially in the background. Now, one thing is, I ran out of space here, so what I'll do is I'm going to grab another little soap dish. I have a stack of about 6 or 7 of these over here, so I just kind of pull them out as I'm painting. But if you're using a larger porcelain dish, just mix wherever you have space. So I'm just getting lighter blue. Now, if the palette that you're using has only one blue, what you can do is use a lot more water to make it more transparent so it's lighter, as well as adding just a little bit of green to it to give you more of like an atmospheric blue. And what I'll do with this one is I'm going to fill in. So in the background here, there's some spots where it should really be the sky. And overlaying, even though there's green in there, it's totally fine. Just kind of fill it in. Like that. Definitely back here. See, this blue that I'm adding in here is very subtle. It's not overpowering, but it still gives you the idea like, oh, okay, this is the sky back here. The sky that's peeking through all the leaves and all the trees. And you're just kind of slowly layering it in like that. Okay. Rinse my brush. I will point out that if you wanted to stop at this point, it would pretty much look just fine. Like, I mean, this looks like a pretty complete piece of art. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my previous plate. I'm going to grab some more of the dark green, because now I'm going to add some darker layers to the background that's further back. And so that's a mixture of green and brown. So basically I'm just adding contrast. So, but I want to add more of the green. I do want it to be more on the green side. So I'm going to add back here. I'm going to go in like this. Like that. You can kind of pick and choose where you want to emphasize things. Like, I still want to see this little tree in the background. Adding a little more down here like this. Maybe back here, watching out for the little spikes. Making a little texture so it's not just like a line, making it a little more organic looking. And back here. And I'm going to grab a little bit of the dark blue and mix it in with the brown here. A little more dark blue. And this will give me a nice, this is a strong mixture that I can use for example, some of the details here. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want to add a little more shadow to the legs. definitely like this. A little more, almost like an outline. A little bit of texture. Following the spikes. Just want to show like that. A little bit back here. There we go. Maybe just a little bit here, close to the face. Maybe emphasize some of those spikes, some of those lines, just kind of go over them in the same direction. And if it doesn't look perfect, no worries. Still looks good enough. So I'm going to step back a little bit just to double check, see how everything looks. And I would say that this looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. So yeah, I think this is done. Okay, so we're done with this one. This is page 2 of the forest scenery book. If you have any questions, please feel free to just leave a comment or send me a message. It took about 40 minutes, 35 minutes, something like that. And you can see that as long as you have good paper, the paint is less important, but you can still get good results. And I'll leave links to everything in the description. Thank you for painting with me, and I will see you next time.